Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. So, today I have this article that I saw where it basically is talking about how fat activists, or some fat activists, anyways, are losing weight or are leaving the movement. And I guess they're kind of just talking about the whole thing and people's thoughts on it. And I thought it was an interesting article. So it just came out. It's very fresh. We keep it current here. Okay, sometimes we do. But I've been ruminating a lot about the death of, honestly, BOPO, fat acceptance, whatever you want to call it. I don't know that it's completely dead. I just feel like it's transforming or changing into something different. And I don't know that I like what it's turning into. Uh, but we're going to talk about it and we're going to see what's going on here. So it says here, body positivity influencers helped us feel better in a heroin chic hellscape. Then they started losing weight. Body positivity influencers made plus size people everywhere feel represented. I never felt represented, but I guess it is what it is. That is until popular weight loss drugs declared thin is in. Meredith Clark asked content creators and activists if we should be mad when our favorite plus size influencers lose weight or if fat phobia is really to blame. So I would say you shouldn't be mad when somebody chooses to lose weight because they're most likely improving their health as long as they're doing so in a healthful way, especially if they're super morbidly obese. It is almost a completely ridiculous question. I would say, once again, complete lack of health in this article. So it's either should we be mad or is it really just fat phobia? Is it social stigma that's causing people to lose weight? I think that's, anyways, we're really starting strong here. Okay. We never stopped advocating for ourselves, but it seems like everyone else did, said plus size model Tabria Majors. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry if I'm butchering names. Tabria Majors, after she noticed a concerning trend on her social media feed. She wasn't the only woman to take note. In recent months, the plus size community has grappled with feelings of abandonment as some of the influencers they followed online, whose content typically challenged weight stigma, have begun to quite visibly shrink. So this is the easy answer to why this occurred is because a lot of people get into activism or they get into things because they're grifting. So they're in it for the money. Now, in some cases, I do think there are some fat activists that faced health issues or that had health crises or hit a wall and woke up and got out of it. I do think that does occur, but I think a lot of people on social media, they are quite simply looking for a way to monetize themselves in whatever way possible. So if they're willing to, promote obesity or, which I think is completely unethical on all levels, they're willing to do that because it was popular at the time. Now it isn't as popular, so they change. So I think that's why a lot of people are doing it. I think during this time, we're seeing the real fat activists kind of separate from the grifty ones. And then, like I said, in some cases, some people are actually waking up. And I think it's really, you can tell because those people, they go into it. They talk about the whole thing. They break it down, right? I think those people you can tell are more real. If they're just kind of losing the weight in secret, I think it's kind of grifty-ish. It's a little bit grifter. It's giving grifter in that case because if you promoted obesity, I do think you have a moral imperative to unpromote it if you have a change of heart. I think it is required for you. I will just say that flat out. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue here. And to clarify one more thing, you do not have to say anything if you didn't promote obesity, but if you did, then I do think you have a moral obligation to undo some of the damage. I do. Okay. So anyways, let's continue. I feel like we're living back in the early 2000s. This is such a crazy exaggeration. I just cannot. Curve model Rain. Oh my gosh, I could not pronounce people's names. Rayanne Langus told her followers after witnessing an uptick in fat-phobic rhetoric on the internet. I should definitely be taking these names down because I should look at them. Famous plus-size model Tess Holliday shared a video of herself lying in bed, writing over the clip. Seeing another plus-size influencer lose weight just to turn around and blame the body-positive community. Meanwhile, author Sarah Sapora shared a series of tips for followers whose favorite fat content creators didn't, quote, want to be fat anymore. It seems that there's no escaping the rise of thin is in messaging currently permeating social media, fashion, and the wellness industry. It was never gone. I say that every time. I think what it is that people that were in echo chambers, they're now being faced with people who have turned for either financial reasons, health reasons, or in some cases, probably a combination of the two. So, because it is less popular, and I think it's hard for a lot of body positivity people or fat acceptance people to reconcile the fact that their movement is not as popular. It's really gone downhill, especially since really the pandemic, I would say. I think that was the major turning point because it was very strong in 2019. And ever since, it has been going down. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse for the fat acceptance movement. So I'm always interested to see if there will be any kind of a resurgence because it seems like it doesn't tend to go away completely. But I find we're in a strange time where the institutions, so like media, like this to a certain extent is media. You know, they say they're independent, but they're pushing, kind of a typical mainstream thing, mainstream media opinion. This journalist isn't saying anything out of the bounds. I mean, that's fine. They're kind of just talking about the whole situation. But there's still this assumption that, should you be mad at them or are they just losing weight because of fat phobia? It's like the institutions, the media, universities, hospitals, the medical industry, all these different institutions, they're still pushing fat acceptance. But culturally, it has really gone down. So I feel like we're in a weird time now where culturally it's not lining up with the institutions anymore. And I think we're also having an industrial push for weight loss medication. So it's very strange to have all of these things kind of intersecting at once. And that's the landscape of the fatosphere in 2024. It's really difficult. I would hate to be a fat activist at this time, But I think when something's dying, people are scared of what comes next. Even for me, I'm a little nervous. I don't want us to go back to the early 2000s either. I don't think that was good. I think that the early 2000s directly led to now in a way that's really negative. And so I don't think we should go back. I think we should move forward. And I do think most people are on board with that. So let's continue. Famous plus size. I already read that. Okay. It seems that there's no escaping the rise of thin is in, thanks to popular oh my gosh. Okay. Thanks to popular injectable medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. See, this person is kind of pushing those mainstream narratives, so it's interesting. So what do we do when two things are being pushed at the same time? It's interesting to me. Thanks to popular injectable medications like Ozempic and Wegovy, whose side effects include weight loss, it's never been easier to achieve a smaller body. But for those who felt represented by the body positivity movement, witnessing a number of plus-size influencers undergo their own weight loss transformations has triggered feelings of betrayal and abandonment. Some see it as tossing aside the community they've cultivated online, while others worried that their content has turned fat-phobic as they equate weight loss to good health. So, this is true in the case of supermorbid obesity. Absolutely. Is absolutely true. I think what we see a lot is people seeing that what they believe is wrong, or, and they don't view it that way. Usually they'll view it as they'll blame the person. I think it's kind of like a psychological defense mechanism. It's really easy to just blame a person rather than to actually question the ideology behind it. Because when you see people dying a lot in regard to the fat acceptance movement, you would think that people would start to wake up more and not necessarily feel betrayal and abandonment from seeing people lose weight, but feel relief or genuine feelings of praise or happiness, or honestly relief. But that's not how people are. People tend to either feel jealous or they feel cognitive dissonance, and so they start to feel betrayed and abandoned, which is really interesting to me personally. I find it interesting because it's just such a reality denial. It's such a blatant reality denial. And I don't care who somebody is. I don't care what they are, what they believe, anything about the person. I do not want them to suffer with obesity-related issues or to die an early death. I do not want that to happen. I do not care who you are. I would be happy for you, period. But a lot of people don't feel that way. A lot of people are just like, well, I believe this about being fat, and how dare you challenge what I believe. And that's very negative. But like I said, people will tend to blame the person. So I can understand it. I don't like it, but that is how people tend to be, especially when feelings of identity, which a lot of people in fat acceptance, they identify with their obesity. So it can feel like an identity betrayal. It's a super negative thing. But I don't feel necessarily bad for those who have promoted obesity in the past, because it's kind of like what they have to deal with. It's like a cost of what they've done, honestly. So if they get the pushback and stuff, I don't feel bad for them on a personal level, but I do hope that they will equate weight loss to good health and push counter narratives to what they pushed. I think it would really help to mitigate some of the damage. And I do think that they should be supported. And I would support anybody who does do that, because they will get a lot of pushback, So while I may not feel bad for them, I do think it's important for those of us who are against fat acceptance to support people who come out against it. It's important because they will need support, because there is usually backlash. Remy Bader, an influencer known for her candid reviews of plus-size clothing, recently set Reddit snark pages aflame when she declined to comment on speculation surrounding her weight loss journey. The 29-year-old TikTok star said she was instead setting boundaries with her 2.3 million followers, especially amid an influx of body shaming. Interesting. Every day I wake up and realize that I am fortunate to do what I do and wouldn't change it for the world. Yet when you go online and choose not to set your own boundaries, whatever those may be, people get very used to feeling that they are obligated to know every detail about you. Bader wrote in an essay published in Nylon. Offering up my entire life became the expectations. Viewers felt entitled and I felt indebted. Super interesting. Super, super, super interesting. I don't know enough about her. Again, I really should look through these names. I think I will. I'm really thankful for this article. But if she did not promote obesity or she did not push fat acceptance rhetoric, I don't think it's fair to comment on her losing weight or, really get all weird about it. I think that the audience would be the crazy ones in that case, because just being fat is not an advocacy for being fat. I am very much about the person. I do not attack people for being fat. I attack them for being fat activists, because there's a difference. There's a difference between struggling with your weight yourself, and there's a difference between promoting other people to also struggle with their weight. I mean, that is just horrible. And all the health issues that come along with it. So I don't tend to judge when people are struggling to lose or people are not speaking in favor of fat acceptance, because we all have our crosses to bear. I hope people figure it out. But yeah, I mean, if her only thing with being fat was that she was looking at clothes, I don't think she needs to apologize. I don't think she needs anything. It's just clothing. She can show clothes at a different size now, So in that case, I would totally agree with her. Unsurprisingly, her decision to keep details surrounding her weight loss private sparked backlash from fans who'd been following her body positivity posts. Okay, well, it depends on what she was saying then. Who'd been following her body positivity posts for quite some time. One Instagram user claimed that the influencer was ignoring the elephant in the room by refusing to address comments about her appearance and questioned whether Bader should be more transparent with her followers. If she did promote fat acceptance, then she does owe an explanation. She does need to speak out against it if she's realized that it's wrong, because that's very unethical. If you realize, for example, that your health is going to shit because you're super morbidly obese, and then you decide to lose weight and you don't tell anybody anything when you've been encouraging people to be that size, that is reprehensible. It absolutely is. So in that case, she should be more transparent if she's been doing that. For Jordan Underwood, a Brooklyn-based content creator and plus-size model, it isn't that Bader has chosen to forgo personal details about her fitness journey that has angered the plus-size community. Okay, let's see Jordan's take. Remy has stated that she does not consider herself an activist, okay? And if we consistently demand activism from her, it is both unfair to her and to the movement. Interesting. I would say it depends on the body positivity posts that Remy posted. It depends on what was said. Like I said, I don't know personally where that line is. I could probably look at it and see, if I feel like it's enough. I'm just saying if you have promoted it, then yeah, you do need to explain it. If you haven't, then you don't. So I don't know where Remy lies on that spectrum. Okay. Underwood, who uses they, he pronouns, told The Independent, rather, it presents somewhat of a moral dilemma when a plus-size influencer who no longer identifies as part of the community they built online continues to profit from that same platform. So that's an interesting statement, just because in Jordan's mind, should Remy just delete her entire TikTok or what? You could. You could also just deal with the backlash. It's interesting. It's an interesting concept. I wouldn't consider it immoral to keep your platform. I would just consider it as you do have to deal with backlash, and I think you should speak out against it if you realize that it's wrong and deal with that backlash because you put it out there in the first place, if that makes sense. Okay. It's easy to argue that thinness has always been in. As with most social justice movements, body positivity, which aims to dismantle weight-based discrimination and stigma, faltered once it became trendy in the early 2000s. Interesting. Brands soon learned that being size inclusive was profitable, and a number of fashion labels expanded their size ranges online and in stores. But as heroin chic hit a resurgence in 2022, only to be followed by the popularization of weight loss drugs, suddenly body positivity seemed to no longer be a focus. Interesting. So I like this paragraph a lot. I think it does describe a very good breakdown of what happened throughout the 2010s. I think, like I said, though, it was starting to die in 2020, so it was earlier than 2022, because the health issues were coming in more during that time. Everybody was thinking about their health, so it made people kind of collectively reflect upon it. I know it definitely made me reflect upon it, for sure. I remember having that thought myself where I was like, in a post-COVID world, being fat is not acceptable because this disease is just out there and it's very risky. And that was at that time when it was riskier. That was how I felt about it. And I was like, I'm going to have to lose the weight now. Like, I'm going to have to really do it because this has changed the world in a sense. And I could see a lot of people feeling that way because it was kind of like a really big reality check health-wise, especially in the United States. So, because I don't know if it's really heroin chic that's in right now. It seems to be more like being muscly or like being fit is what's in. It's a little different than what they're trying to paint it as. Okay. Suddenly, body positivity seemed to no longer be a focus. Just 1 year after launching extended sizing, Old Navy removed its plus-size clothing from retail store locations, while Loft discontinued its plus-size collection entirely to cut pandemic costs. Well, yeah, I think there's been a lot of economic issues throughout the past few years, so a lot of stores are cutting down on cost in any way possible as they're trying to fight inflation. And I think that they maybe weren't selling as much of those plus size options. They also cost more because it's more fabric. There's just a lot that goes into it because they probably also had to charge more, and then it just, it's like boom. Because I think that the economic issues have also change people's views on obesity as well, because like if you think of the rising cost of food in 2022, for example, which happened pretty much globally, being super morbidly obese has become incredibly expensive for the average person. And I do think it has caused people to reflect upon it, to reflect upon their spending habits. Not everybody, but I think about people that eat fast food every day, and I don't know how they do it. I just don't. I have no idea how you could do that. Because even if you just have the money, it is such a waste of money to do that. Like, it's kind of mind-blowing. Even if you had the money, I would think you'd want to invest it in something other than fast food. But that's what I'm saying. I feel like those kinds of mindsets have permeated. That's another reason why fat acceptance is dying in the culture, because it's just not relevant anymore. So people cannot relate to it as much. Like I can't. I can't. And I was fat forever. So I think that's another part of it. Brands deserting the promises they made to plus-size customers has always been par for the course in the name of capitalism. But people were a little less forgiving when body positivity influencers began to do the same. So I guess she's saying customers were expecting companies to turn, but not the people. It's interesting. I wonder why they view it differently. If it's not profitable for the businesses, it may not be profitable for the people either. So it's still going to affect it. You're only going to have your true blue believers. You're going to have like a Splotch Maker or a Marissa Matthews. They really, really believe it, because they'll fight the fight when a lot of people aren't. A lot of people have left. Every influencer, whether they think of themselves as a business or not, they sort of are in some ways, said Virgie Tovar. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. An activist and Forbes contributor whose work focuses on the plus-size market and workplace weight discrimination. Social media has grown into an industry in its own right, according to Tovar. Yes. I actually agree with Virgie, which is kind of crazy, but hey, guess we're there. But like with any business, having a clear set of values is key to maintaining loyal followers. What's challenging is when you're an influencer and you put forth your value proposition and you gain followers based on that value proposition, and then you decide, I don't want to do anything with that. Those aren't my values anymore. I decided I want to do something else. There's a series of actions and accountability that are expected. Yeah, I would agree. I'm agreeing with Virgie. Look at me. I'm actually agreeing with her. I agree. When an influencer decides to rebrand their business, like focusing on wellness instead of rejecting the weight loss industry, there's a due diligence needed to your online community, some of who don't agree with diet culture or fitness content. I put the metaphorical dollar in this bucket, and now you switch the label on the bucket and you're taking that dollar and you're leveraging it to do something that I never wanted my money to be used for, she said. So this is interesting because I think I don't agree with this, because people are not necessarily like a charity, if that makes sense. It's like you can give money to somebody because they're entertaining you, they're preaching a narrative that you agree with, or they're trying to spread an idea that you agree with. If they change that, then you can stop, So the bucket thing, it doesn't work. It'd be more like if you kept giving $1 to the bucket and then they changed the label on the bucket, you could continue to keep giving the $1 or you could not give it anymore. So I think there's a little bit more entitlement in that, because once you've given the $1, it's no longer yours, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So it's not about this. It's about, do you continue to give to the person? Which, yeah, I could understand people not doing that, If I was following somebody and they were anti-FA and I was buying their merch or like doing certain things, or I was really supporting them as a person, and then they changed the narrative and they suddenly became fat acceptance, I don't think I would do that anymore. I don't know that I would necessarily continue to watch, at least certainly not as a fan, maybe somebody to react to, right? I don't think I would buy their merch anymore. That's fat acceptance merch. I don't think I would donate anything to that person, because it's not my values. So I think that that's fair, but I wouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I gave that person money in the past when they agreed with me. It's like, no, they agreed with you at the time. So I don't know. That part is weird. Content creator Alex Ochoa, I think, known online as Made by Alex NYC, became the subject of online controversy earlier this year when she shared an Instagram reel documenting her weight loss journey. Ochoa, who runs the inclusive clothing brand Shiny by Nature, posted a video of herself wearing her brand's pastel tennis skirt set, along with the caption POV, deciding to lose weight because you love yourself. Love that. I like that a lot. I actually really like that. The comment section was flooded with fans criticizing Ochoa for seemingly insinuating that the only way to achieve health or happiness is by losing weight. No, that's not what she's saying. She's saying that it's that way for her, basically, with her set of circumstances. Okay. For other customers, it was even more frustrating to see a business owner walk back the very ideals of self-love and acceptance they had built into their brand. It isn't about hating yourself or not accepting yourself. Sometimes it's about accepting what needs to change and loving yourself enough to change. So I would say no, not necessarily. Okay. If you as a plus size influencer are tired of health issues or you're tired of feeling a certain way about your body, you want to improve that and you take steps to do so, that's not a betrayal to me. Cindy Noir, an Atlanta-based content creator and personal development speaker, told The Independent, betraying is when you are changing your body to be superficial and they begin downplaying or putting down the body you once had or putting down people who are still part of the fat community. There is no fat community. So what I will say with this is I think it gets a little bit more gray. So when it comes to putting down the body you once had, for example, I don't like it. I wouldn't like to see somebody who has struggled with toxic ritualistic behavior. I wouldn't like to see somebody doing that just because it would make me worry about a relapse because it's not good. But if somebody doesn't have that issue and they didn't like the way they looked before, it's their body. They have a right to critique their own body. You know, I think you probably won't hear me say that as much. I'm sure I've made some comments before. Like I said, I was a beluga whale, for example, but I don't hate whales, you know. I'm not anti-whale. So it's not really, I don't have that much of a value statement on it. It's just, to me, a way of describing how I looked at the time. And I think it's funny. But I don't really get on here and bash the way my body looked. And I wouldn't ever encourage that. I also wouldn't necessarily judge it though. But I would never be like, yeah, you should totally do that on my channel. I would never do that. So it's gray. It's a little bit of a gray area. Putting down people who are still part of the fat community. So the fat community is code for fat acceptance. So what this person is saying is they don't want you to take anybody with you. To which I say, nope, screw that. I don't agree. If body positivity was the mainstream buzzword of the 2010s, then parasocial, a term used to describe the familiar way mass media consumers interact with media figures, has taken its place in this decade. Social media platforms were built for forming parasocial relationships by making internet personalities more accessible than ever before. We place influencers, relatively normal people, on a pedestal, only to be disappointed when they inevitably let us down. It's beyond just plus-size influencers, but the parasocial bond between social media content creators and their platform is so dangerous, said Cindy. Indeed, we should hold certain influencers accountable when their platform has been rebranded into one that perpetuates diet culture and harmful rhetoric, or no longer serves the community they continue to profit from. It depends. Kind of rolling my eyes a little bit. But as for their desire to conform to societal standards of thinness, that may never change. The only thing we have control over is how we consume their content, if at all. Okay, that was really a weird paragraph. That was horrible. I want to read it again because it was so bad. Indeed, we should hold certain influencers accountable when their platform has been rebranded into one that perpetuates diet culture and harmful rhetoric. So, is fat acceptance not harmful? I would disagree with that majorly. Diet culture, this needs to be defined. Okay, huge skepticism. Or no longer serves the community they continue to profit from. In my opinion, telling somebody the truth about obesity is serving the community that they have, the community that they've grown on their page. But as for their desire to conform to societal standards of thinness, that may never change. It's not going to, because it's not good to be fat. The only thing we have control over is how we consume their content, if at all. Okay, I guess. When scrolling through social media and coming across content that may make us feel angry or disappointed, Cindy suggests muting, unfollowing, or even blocking as the best course of action. Okay, so Cindy advocates for essentially cancellation. That's what Cindy's advocating for. If you go against our narrative, then you should cancel. You should be canceled, basically. I would say something a little different. I would just say, if something's challenging you, maybe look at it differently. Maybe consider a different perspective. And if you really like the person, you might still like them even if you disagree, and it might be a good thing to have a little bit less of an echo chamber on your social media. Because sometimes even if you were, this could go for like other stuff, even if you were to completely disagree with somebody's rhetoric, whatever it would be for whatever topic, it could still help you strengthen your own. Now, I don't think it would help in the case of fat acceptance, because I don't think that is good at all. And I think it's like the more you hear anything other than it, you're typically just going to not believe in it anymore. So, of course, they're going to have a culty reinforcement to keep people in it, because it requires constant reinforcement, and it requires blocking everything else out to believe something that is so blatantly untrue, especially if you're experiencing it yourself in a super morbidly obese body. The amount of self-brainwashing it would take to continue that indefinitely, it would require you not seeing anybody change their mind. But I would say if your position was that strong, you could handle it. That's what I'll say. However, there should also be a recentering on where exactly those conversations on body positivity are taking place. Yes, social media has proven to be an important organizing tool, but the real way to combat our current thin is in cultural swing is by building community offline too. Okay, and I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to go further into institutions and then impose it upon society, which I don't think will work at all. But it could still have disastrous consequences in the meantime. So it's something we need to be aware of. It's important for us to say, what world do I want to create? Do I want to create a world in which people are on medication for the rest of their lives in order to suppress their body weight? Or do I believe in a world where biodiversity is real and it matters? I would say, Tovar, that is a false equivalency, or like not a false equivalency, a false dilemma. Super false dilemma. Not real. That is a dilemma that doesn't exist. There are many, many other options. Many, 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 many other options. There are a lot of ways to attack the obesity issue. So many ways. So many. Definitely not two. And I think most of us know the answer to that question. Yeah, I know the answer to the question for you, for sure. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. I think that was an interesting article. I don't agree with the journalists, but I did like the article. I think it was good work, even if it was kind of weird and went on that weird unhinged thing in the middle of it. I still really liked the work. So let me know what you guys think. And I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a good rest of your day, night, whatever. Peace. Bye.